Participation. I always get nervous whenever I see a countdown. It's ready to get rock and rolling, but that's just me. All right, there we go. Let me get this thing switched over to my PowerPoint so we can really make this party happen. Okay. There we go. Uh, Everyone, welcome. My name is Cody Straight. I'm the Director of Strategic Initiatives here at Access eForms. Been able to be so fortunate as to be here for right around 15 or so years. I know a lot of you that are on the call today as I look up and down the attendee list. So hey, for our current customers that are here today, thank you so very much for being here. Really appreciate of course, you being a customer, your support of our company. Of course, we want to support you guys. For those of you that are not customers, a big thank you to you for being here and taking this time out of your day to explore what Access is all about. So what are we doing here? Today, we're going to make a little webinar, a little presentation to you basically about what it is we're doing here at Access to help progress you down the pathway of paperless. We had a webinar, one of our customers was very gracious to do, I think it was last week before last, and it was San Juan Regional Medical Center out in New Mexico. The CIO, Sherry Rawlings, was phenomenal. She talked about her pathway down a paperless process, and she talked about what she was doing. Now, as a result of that webinar, we had a lot of people raise their hands and say, hey, that's really great to hear her story, and we really appreciate that, but show us some of the products, show us what some of this stuff looks like. So that's the intent today, okay? So we're actually going to be walking through some of the different products and tools. We're going to be covering the different concepts as to how Access can help you carry yourself down a paperless pathway. So that's what's in store for you today. We are recording this webinar, so it's something that you can put in the rotation with all of your other holiday classics, It's a Wonderful Life, Miracle on 31st Street, or whatever those things are. Feel free to make it part of your family tradition. Why not? Sounds fun. So you got myself today, though, Cody Straight. You also have Mike Bugara, who's going to have a little part talking about some of the history with Meditech and his experience working with Meditech. And on that note, it's actually quite special because this session today is geared towards Meditech users, Meditech hospitals, okay? So as I'm going through this today, if you hear me talking about, some different Meditech terms and whatnot, that's, of course, because the audience is Meditech focused, Meditech centric. Some of you on here may or may not be Meditech users. That's absolutely fine. But again, Meditech is really the focus today. And on that note, let's get into some of the housekeeping items, right? This is a webinar, which means Mike and I are the ones that are going to be talking, and of course we're doing that in the interest of time. We want to make sure that this is a very concise use of everybody's time. However, we do want this to be as interactive as possible. We do want to make sure that this information is relative. We do want to make sure that we have an opportunity to answer questions. So as we go through this, if you have questions, how do you ask us questions? Well, in the GoToWebinar user interface, there's a tab for questions. So if you have questions while I or Mike are speaking, please enter those questions in, and we will cover some of those questions at the end of this session. And again, feel free to make sure that your questions, or if you want to add a Meditech flavor to your questions, we can certainly address those as we go through this. One last bit of housekeeping. Handouts. You'll also notice in the different tabs that you can expand in the GoToWebinar user interface, we have a Handouts tab where there are a variety of resources there that you can click and download, such as one of them is talking about our passport application, the other one is talking about some mobility solutions, another one's talking about a cost savings infographic. So feel free to use this as an opportunity to grab some of those different handouts, and again, we just want to make sure that we're providing very appropriate and helpful content to you guys. So with no further ado, let's get this show on the road. All right, click over here. Okay, so Meditech. Again, this is a webinar geared towards Meditech users. We are, in fact, a Meditech collaborative solutions partner. We have been so for 4 or 5 years or something along those lines. A lot of you guys have met us at the different Muse trade shows and things of that nature. But our relationship with Meditech is actually very, very unique. And so along those lines, what I would like to do is just pass it over to my colleague Mike for one moment. And Mike, if you would, from your perspective, tell people a bit about your history, how you came to work at Access, how long you've been here, where you were before, and your experiences in working with our company relative to Meditech.
Sounds good. Thank you, Cody. Now, my name is Mike Bagara. I'm a sales engineer with Access. Now, I haven't been here as long as Cody, which is a great tenure here. I've only been with Access for about the past couple months now. However, I consider myself being part of the Access family for over the past couple years. With that, I mean is that I formerly worked for Meditech for about 9 years. I worked in both their implementation division supporting scanning and archiving, as well as within their marketing division as a senior marketing support rep, as I covered both scanning and archiving, registration, all different tools to help alleviate paper within the organization, as well as helping to streamline that process. So before I get into the marketing side of my experience with Access and actually demonstrating the collaboration between Meditech and Access, one of the things that I would like to touch into is before we actually started going through some of the features such as the electronic signature and things along those lines, Meditech was actually utilizing Access's passport solution. So a lot of the forms that I used to have to fill out manually, for short-term stability, being able to telecommute, things along those lines, we were doing it the old school way of filling out that paper form and then putting it in our yellow envelopes and transferring it all to interoffice all throughout, I believe, 5 or 6 different buildings within the Massachusetts area. Once we brought in Passport through Access, we were able to take all of those paper routines and make them all electronic. So both for my supervisors and managers, it really expedited their process, but even down to the employee level, we were able to help get rid of that paper within the organization, no longer having to do those internal forms and transfer between the buildings. We were able to utilize Access and make that all electronic, helping to save us that time, but also, at the long run, that cost as well. So up here you see some of the routines that Meditech is currently utilizing Access within the Passport solution. So the internal transfer forms, some of their applications for educational assistance, reimbursements, things along those lines, even down to that college ambassador program that Meditech utilizes and their different types of leave. And on the right, we do see that we do have a quote right from Scott Radner, who's the Vice President of Advanced Technology with Meditech, indicating that their eForms and eSignatures choice came down to who offered the best cost benefit and who had the best working relationship. And that really did come down to Access. And that's one of the things that I can strongly talk to. As about 2 years ago, we started, Meditech started working with Access to bring in the electronic e-signature routines. And this is where I was able to work hand in hand with Cody and some of the other folks at Access to get that embedded directly into the Meditech marketing demonstration rings. So their marketing support reps were able to be demonstrating this live right out as on the road to show that collaboration between launching from registration right into the signature routines and having that come back right back through their enterprise content manager solutions. But one of the things that I'd like to point out with that comment from Scott is that working relationship that Access had with Meditech. I can't tell you how many times, whatever I needed from Access from the Meditech perspective in my past role, they were only a phone call away. And that's what one of the things that drove me to come and actually work from Access now is it wasn't so much of a vendor type relationship. It was really more of a family where whatever I needed, Cody or Chris and some of the other great guys at Access, they were just a phone call away. So whatever I needed to try and maybe tweak a form here and there, things along those lines, they were all right at the drop of a dime. I was able to have them, and they were right there to support us. So it really was, much more of just, an alliance or a collaboration. It really was like one big family where they saw the main goal of trying to help expedite the process and alleviate that paper routines within Meditech and for our customers. So about 2 years ago, we were able to have this embedded directly within and ready to go right for the HIMSS in 2015 in Chicago. Their turnaround time was very quick. I want to say it was only a few weeks that we were able to get this from a concept into production and actually being able to demonstrate that. And I was lucky enough to be one of the demonstrators that was able to show this out in Chicago, and we were able to come right through and have that for our customers jointly between Access and Meditech. And then we're also with Access, as you can see on the bottom here, we do have a partnership not only with Meditech in the United States, but also within South Africa as well as Australia as well.
That's awesome, Mike, and I really appreciate that. Obviously, guys, it's been a long road. We've been working with Meditech for quite some time. It's been a pleasure working with Mike, and it's been a lot of fun working with the people at Meditech. It's a really great company, a really good culture over there, and we've really enjoyed working with them. A couple of things too that I'll highlight as we expand the marketing implications of our technology is Meditech. While Mike had an experience of working with our e-signature solution within the aspect of revenue cycle, the registration area, that is actually now expanding. The e-signature technology is expanding to Meditech's web ambulatory application, as well as we're going to be demonstrating bedside procedural consents working hand in hand with Meditech. So that's something that Meditech will be involving in their demo ring. They're going to be showcasing that over at HIMSS and everything as well. So very excited about that. So that's just a little blurb about our relationship with Meditech, in that it's not just a collaborative solutions partner. It's actually much, much more. Okay, so very good history with Meditech. Now, what do we do here at Access? Obviously, the customers here, you know what we do in various aspects is you guys use some of the different components of our technology. One of the things we've been doing for a long time is our printing solutions. So, for the longest times we would talk to hospitals and we'd say, hey, if you have all these pre-printed forms, you have all these sticky labels, you want to eliminate all those, you want to manage those in-house, you want to put barcodes on your forms, you want to eliminate version control issues, those sorts of things, then we had the solutions that could be used to help hospitals along those lines. So, however, time and time again, we had customers that said, we want to go paperless. We want to take some of these paper solutions, we want to eliminate the paper entirely. So that's what we've been working on, and that's what we're going to really focus on today, is not our print solutions, not the number one, but we're going to focus on the elimination of the paper gaps. We're going to talk about doing this within the registration area using patient e-signature. We're going to talk about doing this at the bedside and radiology. We're also going to talk about some of the back office processes like what Mike was mentioning that Meditech used earlier. And also, guys, we use our own products. So when Mike came on, as an example, he did all of his onboarding documents and through our through our passport solutions. So it's a completely paperless process from an HR perspective here at Access as well. So we use our own products. Then the third thing that we're going to talk about today, and I wasn't really going to talk a whole lot about this today until Sherry Rawlings, again the CIO over at San Juan, that she did our webinar recently, and she was talking about the benefits of e-signature, but she said actually the most beneficial product she has from Access is the Universal Document Portal, which takes output from various medical devices and various systems. Like in her case, she's using it for perinatal devices, EKGs. She's taking output from Allscripts, and she's using our Universal Document Portal to take all those outputs and pass it directly and electronically and automatically right into the patient's record within Scan Archive. So the Universal Document Portal is just this little utility that eliminates copious amounts of paper. So thought we'd focus on that a little bit today as well. So the Access Passport solution, this is where we're investing our development dollars in our research, okay, is elimination of paper. We're doing that with our Passport solution, which is our web-based browser-delivered electronic form solution. And our mantra now, as we talk to hospitals, we say, we can help you eliminate your paper gaps wherever those are. Often it's anything that involves patient engagement, whether it's just consents or important message from Medicare or ABNs at registration, or if it's at the bedside, again, like procedural consents, or maybe it's at radiology for MRI questionnaires or CT questionnaires, or contrast consents, things like that. Government forms, of course, government forms have to adhere to a certain structure or standard, whether that's U.S., federal, or state, or I know I have some people here from Canada, for maybe a provincial form, or I have also people here from the European Union that decided to stick around a little bit later in their day. So again, any government form we can handle. Matter of fact, healthcare is our primary line of business, but we also have government lines of business. So we have the U.S. Federal Reserve, we have the U.S. Forestry Service using our technologies as well. So we know government forms quite well. And then, of course, you also have the back office, which there's a lot of paper that floats around that area as what we've been talking about. Now, what we see oftentimes happening is what we call the Band-Aid approach, where there'll be a paper-based process somewhere in the hospital. And what will happen is a very siloed view is taken where maybe somebody in registration or somebody in the nursing area or somebody in the back office will say, I want to eliminate my problem with my piece of paper or my few forms, and they'll go out there to the market and they'll find very niche technologies to solve these problems. And while it might solve their problem, that unique piece of technology is not transferable or applicable to other areas of the hospital, okay? So we don't want to provide a Band-Aid solution or a Band-Aid approach that's exclusive only to a form or a process in a department. Rather, with Access, again, we want to close all of your paper gaps. So however many forms, whatever it is that exists on paper, regardless of the department, it is one solution that can be used across the spectrum. So understand what I'm saying is the same piece of technology that can provide dynamic bedside consents that can launch automatically from, say, like a Meditech system is the same piece of technology that can be used to operate some of your HR forms and capital purchase requests in the back office and interface that data with, say, Lawson or PeopleSoft. So it's a very broad spectrum that I'm talking about here that you can use this technology for. So a couple of foundational pieces of this technology. Again, this is a browser-delivered solution, which means that it's device agnostic. Okay, so I don't care if you're using a tablet, if you're using an iPhone, an Android device, any device you can access, sign, complete any form on any device. Furthermore, anywhere. All right, so like I had mentioned and like Mike had mentioned, we use this product internally here at Access. So this can be used for a variety of applications, but oftentimes we have a form process that will initiate for one of our users that's geographically located in Texas. That then needs approval or sign off by somebody in New England. So it's routed over to them automatically. Then it gets automatically routed to one of my colleagues over in Colorado, and then one of my colleagues up over in Washington State. That happens for us all the time because we're spread out, we're spread around, just like what Mike was talking about with Meditech, that they were 8 campuses and they were having to actually drive forms from one location to another for approvals. We don't we make it so that that's basically irrelevant. You can now automate those types of processes, and that could also be for physician signature of documents anywhere. So, and also anytime. So any device, anywhere, anytime, these forms can be filled out. All right. Here's an example of a form. This is just a procedural consent form right here. So as one element that I want to point out on this, and that's what I'm really doing, is I want to show off some of the core elements as to what these forms are made of. One thing that we're able to do to these forms is we're actually able to have patient content flow onto these forms. We can pull this from Meditech. We can do some really cool things there, pull this from other systems, but we can have patient information merged automatically onto this form. You see we have some clinical content there, so we can work with different clinical content providers to actually bring information over into a form, so we can pull data from different systems and databases and have that data populate onto the form. Very cool stuff there. I'll highlight that whenever I demo procedural consents in a moment. Number 3 is ad hoc content, and hey, that's just filling out the form. You can fill out the form just using free text fields. You can check off checkboxes, radio groups, drop-down list, all these, pick lists, all these different sorts of things you can apply to forms to have users complete that document. Then, number 4, electronic signature. We're actually able to capture signatures from, well, whoever it is that needs to sign documents. We can do that from a patient standpoint, from a physician, nurse, PA standpoint, to an employee standpoint, whatever it is. And we can actually capture signatures in a variety of ways. We can capture graphical signatures, which is what you see here, or we can capture username password-based signatures, which is what most of our customers use for internal employees, all right? And then we also have completion validation, that at the end of this, we're going to make sure that this document is filled out properly. We're going to make sure that the required fields are completed, and that all of the contingent fields that might become required based on you answering questions, that those are completed as well. And at the end of the process, this is going to be submitted over into your scanning solution. But again, this is a Meditech webinar here, so more than likely most of you guys have Meditech Scan Archive. But if you're using, say, Hyland OnBase or something like that, we'll work with that as well. So let's talk about this for a second, the way that this would work in the registration area, and then I'm going to dive into some product. Registration is really quite simple. Your users will key the data into the Meditech system today just as they're keying in the data, right? So there's no change to the data entry process. And this is all the same whether you guys are doing this through your Magic system or client server or 6X, or if you're making a migration. It's the same process, it's the same technology. That's not changing. So your registration clerks will register the patient. That data flows to our server. We're going to use business rules and automatically select the forms for the patient. So if we see that the primary language is Spanish, if we see that the financial class, like in the US, if it's Medicare, if we see da-da-da-da-da, then based on your business rules, we'll automatically select the forms. And then we're actually going to stage those to the server. Now, for some of you that are using our e-signature technology today, there's a couple of really exciting developments that are coming out with this that either Kiffer will be talking with you about, or Clayton will be talking with you about. And again, this is just a high-level session here, but we're actually the Wacom devices are great. We use Wacom devices to capture signatures traditionally. We're still going to do that. Those are phenomenal devices. We can use Topaz. We have better experience by far with the Wacom devices, but you can also use touchscreen monitors. So if you wanted to portray some of these documents or show some of these documents to your patient via a touchscreen monitor where they can view it, they can actually touch it to check the checkboxes, they can sign off on the monitor, you're now able to do that. Furthermore, a lot of our customers have asked us, they said, hey, I want to use an iPad in the registration area. We can now do that too. And the cool thing about this is that during the registration process, really the conundrum here is how do I connect an iPad to the registration clerk's workstation? Well, the long and the short of it here is that we can produce a barcode that flashes up on that registration clerk's workstation. I grab my iPad, I choose the Access eSignature app, which you actually can get from the Apple App Store. I then scan that barcode, and what that's doing is that's a unique barcode that identifies the patient and the forms that are staged on the server. So once I scan that barcode, it will grab those forms for that particular patient that are on the server, and it'll bring it to that iPad. Then the patient can just complete the document, sign the document right there on the iPad. Once the document has been signed off on and captured electronically, it is then automatically routed excuse me, over into the Meditech scan archiving system as an example. So it's a totally paperless process. Now what I've got here, guys, this is a screenshot of our new eSignature 8.0 application. So we're very excited about this. It's going to be a very great enhancement for those of you that are, again, currently using eSignature. It's a really great next version of that product, and it's also going to allow these forms to be launched in a variety of different ways. So the way that this works, guys, for those of you that don't know how our eSignature solution works, is once those forms, again, once you've done the registration process within Meditech, this application right here, you see this E that's down in the system tray. The registration clerk will actually have that sitting in their system tray, and there'll be a little icon that pops up that says, like 4. Like in this case, hey, registration clerk, you have 4 documents that need to be completed and signed by the patient. And so they click on that E, and it brings this application up. And so it shows all the forms that have been automatically selected as a result of that Meditech routine and then staged at the server. So from here, I can choose any one of these forms, and I can click Process Form, or I could click on Process All, and it would then initiate all of these forms for signature capture. I could then again use that Wacom device. I could use a touchscreen monitor. But if I wanted to use an iPad, and this is what's a pretty doggone cool addition, I can click on this icon right here, and what happens is it brings up that barcode. And again, that's where I grab my iPad and I scan that barcode, and it transfers all these forms that you see right here to the iPad. It's really, really cool. It's really awesome. So what I'd like to do now is go over to my demo system, which of course has been sitting here live, and it's been, I'm sure, timed out on me. So let me log back into that. Okay, there we go. I'm going to share my other screen here with you in a moment. I'm going to dual monitor setup here. So let me share my screen 2, or screen 1. There we go. All right. So what I've got here, and again, if you guys have questions as I'm going through this, don't forget to type those questions in the questions pane. I want to make sure that I'm getting all the questions answered. So here's an example of just a general consent for medical treatment. So we've got the patient data, which has been married up over to the form, and the rest of this form is pretty basic, pretty rudimentary, and this is how the vast majority of the general consents are, right? They're just pretty much just basic language. And so I've got the patient name right here, and from here I can then just go ahead and capture the signature. So as far as capturing the signature, like I said, you can use a ancillary device like one of our Wacom devices. You can also use, if you're using a touchscreen monitor, you can use that. I'm actually using a Microsoft Surface Pro 2, so I'm going to grab my stylus, and there's my signature. I'm going to click Save, and there's my signature, date and time stamped, everything right behind it. You can have the witness sign off on it if you need be, an interpreter sign off on it. Really, whoever it is you need to sign off on your documents based upon your policies and procedures, you are able to do that. Now I can from here click on Complete. And what happens is this document, as you see it, effectively it goes away. And where is it going? Again, it's going to be going over into the patient's record in Meditech Scan Archive. I'm going to show you another consent here that one of our other customers is using. Let me process this. Now, if you haven't noticed, by the way, I'm in Internet Explorer, so you see my URL right here. So this is just a browser. That's all that this is. Let me zoom in on this one. So this is what's pretty cool about our product now, and some of you again, that have used eSignature before of us, you've not been really privy to be able to use checkboxes. You're now able to do that. So you can see I've got checkboxes right here, acknowledgement of advanced directives. You can have people initial if you want to do that, and then go on and capture signature for that as well. And here I've got, relationship to the patient that can be available via, again, a drop-down list. So lots of neat things that you can do here on that level. Another form that I want to show off that's commonly involved in the registration process is the IMM, or Important Message from Medicare. So let me zoom in again. So Important Message from Medicare, you guys all know this form. It's we've got patient information married up over to this. So again, I'm viewing this on my Microsoft Surface Pro 2, so I'm able to see the form and its complete content. I've been using my mouse to go over it, but I can just touch the screen. I'm using my finger now to scroll up and down so I can see what this looks like. I can then go down here and sign it. Once again, I'm going to use my finger. I'll type where it says click to sign, and I'll sign Cody. Okay, so I can continue on and on and on with different forms that you might sign in registration. So I could show a HIPAA acknowledgement. I could show an ABN. I could show any other type of form that you would have your patients complete on paper. We can do that electronically and automatically from a registration standpoint. So let me cancel out some of these things here so I can clean my screen up. Sorry about that. So let's take this now from eSignature in the registration area, and let's carry that over to the bedside. All right. A lot of you guys are using our eSignature products, so how is it we can be used outside of registration? Well, there's a variety of things that you can do here. So what you're looking at right now, this is our web-based version of our eForms repository. Some of you have the eForms repository. This is the browser-delivered version of that. So what the eForms repository does is it takes an HL7 ADT feed from Meditech, populates that data into a SQL database. I can then, let me back out into the eForms repository so you can see it as a whole. I can see a patient population list that I'm responsible for. So here's a variety of patients, and I'm only going to see the patients, again, that I have the rights and privileges to see based on who I am, what I do, where I am. So if I'm in the ED, I would only see the ED patients. If I am in behavioral health, I'll only see the behavioral health patients. If I'm the director of nursing, maybe I'll see all the patients in the house. Or if I'm in lab, maybe I'll see all the patients in the house. So anyhow, I need some more forms in this case for Wanda Wilson. I'll double click on Wanda Wilson. This then brings me over into the form selection side of things. I can have the form group patient engagement, and so you can present a variety of form groups here, and again, based on who I am, I'm only going to have the rights and privileges to see certain kinds of forms. So I clicked on patient engagement, and here's a variety of forms that I have access to. So one of the things, and that's just one way that you can get to some of these forms. I'm going to go ahead and pull up a procedural consent. Now another thing that you can do from here is you actually can launch forms via a hyperlink. So again, here's the hyperlink for this particular form. So you can embed this wherever it is you might want to embed this and have this actually serve as a launchable form. So we're doing some pretty cool stuff with Meditech, so you'll be able to launch forms directly out of a Meditech screen, therefore making it easier for the user so they don't feel like they're hopping out of one process in Meditech and hop into another system. Anyhow, let's talk about this procedural consent form thing. Another cool thing that you can do, I'm sorry, I meant to mention this earlier. You remember how I talked about earlier grabbing the iPad and scanning the barcode on the registration screen? You can also grab an iPad, you can walk over to the patient, you can scan their barcoded wristband. And if there's forms that have been staged or queued for that patient, or forms that that patient has yet to complete all the way, those will pop up on the iPad just from scanning the patient's wristband. From there, after I've scanned the wristband, if I wanted to add more forms to that queue, I certainly can do that. All right. Anyhow, once I've scanned the wristband, maybe I selected procedural consent form, it then pulls up, well, the procedural consent form. You can see once again I've got patient data merged onto this, and by the way, I am seeing some questions flow through, so thank you very much for that. Keep those questions coming. All right. So here's the interesting thing about procedural consents. All right, you guys in your hospitals, you got a lot of different types of procedures that you guys do. You've got neurological procedures, you've got cardiac procedures, you've got orthopedic procedures, you've got bariatric procedures. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And the way that we typically see these things set up in a paper-based version is that hospitals have to maintain a unique procedural consent form for every procedure. And what we've discovered is the vast majority of these procedural consent forms have the same boilerplate verbiage, right? So you take a look at this consent form right here, and it's pretty generic across the board, right? You got your run-of-the-mill information and information, but you see these blank spots. Well, those are spots where you need to have procedural relevant content. And so the reason hospitals have to manage, hundreds of these procedural consent forms is because each procedure has its own description, its own narrative, its own risks associated with it. And so, hospitals again have to manage these forms at the level of hundreds upon hundreds of these forms. So what we can do is not only can we do this form electronically, but we can help you consolidate a lot of these forms into one master procedural consent form where you have all the boilerplate verbiage, but rather than having to actually write in the procedural relative information, you can have the procedure list available as a drop-down list. Now, this procedure list here is only 3 procedures. Obviously, in hospitals, you're going to have a lot more procedures than that. Well, you don't necessarily want every single procedure to show. So what we can do, if you see right here, we voluntary request that Dr. Wilding demo, of course, that's our demo system. If the physician is listed right there, we can limit the list of procedures that populate based upon who that physician is. All right, so Dr. Wilding only has the rights to perform these procedures. So I'm going to choose appendectomy. So I select appendectomy. What we then do is we dynamically pull all of the information relative to appendectomies into the document. So again, I can choose something else. I could choose a tonsillectomy. I could choose, pretty much anything else, and it will bring in the information relative to that procedure. So my point, once again, is I don't have to manage hundreds of these forms. I have one master document, and I'm able to bring in the content in a dynamic fashion. Beyond that, you see right here, I've got, we do or do not consent for the use of blood products. If I tried to sign off on this without checking that box first, it's going to pop up and it's going to say, hey, wait a second, you can't sign off on this yet. You have to check one of these boxes. So not only are we making the form electronic, not only are we reducing the quantity of forms that you have to manage, but we're also taking the opportunity here to eliminate common human error, which if I've got anybody from HIM on the line here today, which I think that I do, you guys certainly feel the brunt of having to chase down some of these types of errors, okay? Let alone, let's not even talk about the risks associated with this. But anyhow, I check the appropriate box. Now it's open up where I can sign the document. I can have a signature for a patient, I can have a signature for a witness, and I can have a signature for a physician. So I can capture those signatures. More often than not, physicians will be there and they can just sign off right on that session, but it's not at all uncommon for this procedural consent form to be administered by a secondary level provider or like a PA or something of that nature, so the physician would still need to sign off on it, okay? So we can route this form to that physician for their signature and approval. So, and there's a variety of ways that we can do that, but the bottom line is they can be anywhere, and then they could sign off on this form on any device. So that's fantastic. I can go on and on and on about procedural consent forms, but that's just one example. So if you have questions, again, type those questions in. The other form that I want to show you here, and then I'm going to go on and talk about a couple of other elements, is what's called a POLST form or a MOLST form, depending on the state that you live in. And the reason I say state is because it's a state-run form. So it's managed by whatever state you live in. So in this case, this is the state of Hawaii, okay? So provider order for life-sustaining treatment, this form is actually for end-of-life care. So it's not exactly a do not resuscitate. It's just, again, more of an end-of-life care document. So here we have Section A, cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Do I want to attempt CPR or do not attempt CPR? So I can actually check one of those boxes, and notice as I do that, it's only allowing me to check one. And here, again, under the general topic of eliminating human error, I've got Section B, medical interventions. That's tied to Section A. So I can check full treatment. I can check limited additional interventions. I can not check comfort measures only, because attempt resuscitation is checked. All right? So it's tied to this. Now, if I check do not attempt resuscitation, I can check comfort measures only. Conversely, I can't go back up here and check this. So again, we're eliminating common human error affiliated with this, and we're making sure the documents are completed electronically in their entirety before we continue and before we move on with the process. All right, so I'm going to go back over to the PowerPoint for a second, and then I'm going to hop back into the product and show a couple of other things. So let me go back over to sharing my monitor 2. All right, I'm going to step away from the forms for a moment, and I'm going to end off talking about some of the business documents. The Universal Document Portal, so I want to keep the flow of clinical for a second, okay? The Universal Document Portal, again, this is what I was telling you that our CIO at San Juan Regional Medical Center in New Mexico was talking about. She has our e-signature solutions and our enterprise forms management solutions, but she said actually the greatest value of what Access brought to the table was through the Universal Document Portal. And again, what that does is that takes the output from all of the disparate medical devices that you would have in your facility. So your EKG devices, your perinatal devices, your colonoscopy devices. We take the output from all those different systems, all those different devices. Rather than having to print them and scan them, we're able to convert them to the appropriate image format for Meditech Scan Archive and send them right into the patient's record. So again, with Sherry, and you can go look at our website and look at her case study, you'll see that she's outputting output from, again, perinatal, colonoscopy, EKGs, all scripts, all over to the patient's record in Scan Archive. So a couple of screenshots. The one on the left, obviously you can see the name noted there, San Juan Regional Medical Center. That came from Sherry's site. That's a colonoscopy report. That's coming directly into Meditech Scan Archive through the Universal Document Portal. On the right is from another one of our customers that's using this for EKG in conjunction with Meditech Scan Archive. So that's been a phenomenal product. And here's the great thing about this, guys. It's simple, it's easy, it's effective in eliminating a tremendous amount of paper that medical records department would otherwise have to put their hands on. You can go to our website under the case studies section. You can check out what one of our customers, Galway Clinic, which is actually over in the west coast of Ireland, beautiful, beautiful Galway, Ireland. I have another one of my friends here on the line here from the Dublin area, so I would be remiss if I didn't say Dublin's great too. But in any case, Galway Clinic's using this. They're using the Universal Document Portal. Since they've been using it, we have eliminated, you see in the lower left-hand corner there, 304,000 documents. That's 304,000 documents that have ran through the Universal Document Portal. Now, mind you, that's not 304,000 pages or pieces of paper. Oftentimes, these outputs that come through our system are multiple pages. They're 2 or 3 or more pages of documents. So if you just simply said every one of those was a 2-page document, that's over 500,000 pieces of paper that would have been generated. So we're eliminating a tremendous amount of paper there. In some cases, for Galway, they've had throughputs of up to 18,000 reports a month that are running through the Universal Document Portal. So 18,000 reports that would have had to have existed in paper, that would have had to have been scanned in, that is completely eliminated. So again, that's the Universal Document Portal. And next slide here. All right, so I'm going to actually go back over to the forms for 1 second. Let me switch my monitor again. And I'm going to end off back over in Passport talking about the business forms. So far I've talked about things primarily in the context of clinical examples, okay? So I've gone through consents at reg, I've gone through consents at the bedside. I didn't even touch MRI questionnaires, which is something that's awesome, now that I say that, just because I promised to do that. Let me find that real fast just so I can show everybody the MRI questionnaire. So I'm going to launch this one very quickly. Voila, here's an MRI questionnaire. Now the cool thing is this can be filled out in the hospital on any device, or this could actually be filled out in advance of the patient's stay. All right, so right here, this questionnaire, I could say I had a labrum repair in my left shoulder with titanium. All right, I'm going to zoom in a bit more so you guys can see that. And here I can draw on the body where I have my metal. I got some metal there, I got some metal there, and I got some metal there too. And then you can see that is directly on the document. I can go over to my next page, and from here I could check all the check boxes, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. You can also have bubble tips show up on these things. This one's talking about medical devices, and it pops up as a bubble tip saying a few examples of medical devices: insulin pumps, drug infusers, bone growth stimulators, etc. And then I can go down below and capture the signature for the patient and the rad tech. We can also make questions available in a dynamic fashion based upon information like the gender, so information down at the bottom relative to pregnancy and breastfeeding. If it was a male, then those questions would not be available. Now back over to the showing the business documents like I talked about. This is the last thing I'm going to show. Here's a variety of examples, capital expense request, purchase request, PTO request. These are all the documents that we actually use internally. These are some of our forms. So for example, I'm going to pull up a expense report. So this is not just a demo expense report, this is actually the Access expense report that we use. I pull this up, it brings in my employee information, brings up my supervisor information. I can choose when the starting was, and I'm going to purposely leave the period 2 as blank. And so I'm going to say the description was a flight, and customer was St. Joe, and transportation was $350. And you can see, of course, it starts to tabulate those expenses down below and does all the math for you. And then it's a matter of how I paid for this. So there you go. I'm going to try to sign off on this, and it says, wait a second, please enter the ending date. So it's not going to let me submit it unless I've added the ending date. And conveniently enough, it carries me right over to it. So I'm going to check or select December 20th. Now I'm going to sign and submit it, and it's going to say, wait a second, you have to, the total amount tendered must be equal to the amount of the business expense. Okay, so I'm going to say I did this for my American Express. So again, that's 2 times that I could have submitted this document incorrectly, but it kept me from doing so. And then it pops up as a reminder. Now notice, this is not a required element. It pops up as a reminder. It says, have you attached your receipts? Darn it, I did not. So you actually can attach documents to these things. So I can click on attach receipts, and I can attach my scanned receipts, and then I can sign off and I can submit this, and it goes automatically from one person to the next for approval. So it eliminates the workflow steps, it eliminates the decision making, it makes forms trackable, it eliminates the lost forms, and then again, everything that you see here is all discrete data, so we can actually write this data out to a number of different systems and databases. This is what Meditech is using it for. Again, they're using it for their business processes. They're using it from the employee level all the way up to the executive level of their VP and C-suite is using this as well. I could go through a whole number of different examples, but you guys get it. So capital purchase request, and the great thing with those attachments and capital purchase request is I'm oftentimes submitting those through. You submit all sorts of other supplemental information like contracts and quotes and hardware specs. So this allows you to have that supporting documentation flow through those processes as well. All right. All right, and go back and share my other screen. Let's talk about this. This is where I'm going to end off with you guys. I would highly recommend if you want to read some more about this, go to our website, go to accessefm.com, go to our case studies, read about how our customers are using these different products. Also check out our blog. We have a lot of really cool blog posts there. As a matter of fact, I'm actually about to post one here very soon that involves I think it's 12 hurdles or 12 items that you need to look out for as you are evaluating an e-signature solution. So it's 12 uncommon things that people don't usually look at whenever you're evaluating e-signature technology. So all that's there in our case studies and blogs. As far as the case studies go, a lot of really good stuff out there. We got one there for Montrose, we got one for Hilo, one for Galway. There's an array of other ones as well. So go to our website, take a look at those case studies, and but what's coming up next? Here's a couple of things that we're going to be doing. All right, we're actually going to have a e-signature webinar series. The last webinar was so popular. This one we had a lot of people sign up for, and it's one thing for me to show you the technology. It's one thing for me to show you what it looks like. But our customers and the people that have attended these webinars, they came back and they said, this is really great. We like hearing the customer story. We like seeing what your products are doing, but we want more customer stories. So I'm very pleased to announce that we're going to be engaging in the first quarter of 2017 with a webinar series focused towards Meditech hospitals, where we're going to have Meditech hospitals that are customers of ours using our solutions. They're going to talk about how they're using it. They're going to demo how they're using it. We're going to start that off, actually, I believe it's February 9th at 2 p.m. Eastern with Hilo Medical Center out in Hawaii. And by the way, if you want to do an awesome site visit, Hilo is a really awesome one to go to, conveniently located in Hawaii. So if you can pull that off, good luck to you for that one. So stay tuned. We'll make sure that you guys are all aware of that webinar series. And we're also going to provide a e-signature buying guide very soon. That's in the works. That's coming out. That will be announced through our blog. So again, you want to go to our blog, subscribe to that. We're also going to actually be implementing the first quarter of 2017 an e-signature ROI calculator. We can do that today. So if you want to work with one of your Access sales reps, they can help you with an e-signature ROI calculator. We already have all the math built out. We have the reports. We have the means of doing that, but we're going to be making that available in a more digital fashion through our website. Again, all this is going to be available through our blog, so make sure that you subscribe to that, check that out. Very cool stuff going on there. And if you want to reach out to me for whatever reason, hey, there's my information. I don't think I have a slide after this. No, I don't. Okay. So there's my information. If you ever want to reach out to me for whatever reason, feel free to do that. I know a lot of you are current customers, so talk to Kiffer, talk to Clayton, talk to whoever your sales rep is. But I'm available for you 24/7 as well. And again, this session today, it's been recorded, so I do hope that it's been a good use of your time, and we will be submitting these questions, the video out to everybody in an email afterwards, okay? Okay, so let's talk about questions now. So if you want to stick around for the questions and the Q&A, I will stick around as long as anybody needs, and but if you got to run, guys, thanks a lot for your time. Really appreciate that. So let's go on to the questions now. Question number one, is this a web-based solution and is it hosted? Okay, so it's a very good question. The solution is browser delivered. Okay, so every form can be viewed, completed, signed via a browser. So all any end user has to have is just a web browser, whether it's Internet Explorer, Chrome, it's Firefox, it's something along those lines, Safari. That's all that they will need. The second part of that question, is this hosted? It can be a hosted solution, but that's not our MO. That's not what we normally do, okay? The technology is usually an on-premise solution that customers have on their own servers, or maybe it's through like a CloudWave or it's through Dell or something of that nature. All right, it's a good question. Again, keep these questions coming. Do you have some forms off the shelf that we can use? It's a very good question, and we actually do. We have a lot of forms that have already been pre-designed that you can use, you can bring into the solution, you can bring into the technology and use as it is. So we draw on our experience with all of our different customers for that. Another question is, do we have access to the design tool? That's something that you certainly can have access to. We have some hospitals that are just busy with other projects and they don't want to actually design their forms or change their forms. They just rely upon us to do that. So you have that option, or if you want the design tool, yes, you can get the design tool. It's there, it's available, and so that way you can create your own forms and design your own forms. It's a good question. Another one here. I'm sorry, I get wrapped up in my answers. Let me look back at the questions. Okay, here's one. Can you download a copy of the form to a device for the patient at the time the form is completed rather than print a copy? So Terry, that's you asking that question. I'm going to try to answer that. And if I've gotten your question wrong, if I misunderstood it, then just please type another question in there and help reorient me. Okay, so a patient can complete a form. Now, mind you, let's talk about this within the context within the hospital. Okay, so being that this solution is browser delivered, there is no quote-unquote downloading per se of a form. It's not like I'm going to download a PDF and open it up in Adobe Reader and then fill it out in some way, shape, form, or fashion. So there's no downloading. Rather, it's just I'm viewing a form through a web browser. So I can then, once it's on the web browser, I can complete that form electronically. I can sign off on the form. I can do whatever it is that I might need to do to the form from there. Now, the other context is I'm doing this inside the hospital. There's that example. If I'm doing this outside the hospital, like I said, you can have forms available externally. So maybe that's that MRI questionnaire that I showed earlier. Maybe that's a birth plan for your maternity ward that you want to extend to patients in advance of their coming to their appointment or something of that nature. So you can do that as well. They can access those forms either through an email that has been sent to them. You can have these forms on your website. You can also have the patient sign and complete and view the forms through your existing patient portal, which is pretty doggone cool. So in any case, though, if a patient is accessing these forms at home, there's no downloading of a form. Rather, it's just accessing of a form through the web browser. So again, Terry, I hope that answers your question. Terry, you got another one here. Let me read this. Oh, okay. So the question was regarding, it's just parlayed right into what I was talking about, regarding the patient completing the forms before coming into the facility, say for MRI. How do you provide access to the patient? Directly into Passport, via patient portal, with a series of 5 question marks. So, good question. I love the accentuation of multiple question marks. Thank you for that. I like the flair. We can have a patient access these forms, like I said, in a number of ways. It can be through your existing patient portal, which is the nice thing about that is it incentivizes the users to sign up for your patient portal. All right, so they can go directly through the patient portal, access, sign, complete the forms. The other thing that we can do, we can send the patient an email with a link within that email. They click on that link. You can have them complete that form electronically that way. Or, like I said, if you wanted to, and that could be for an MRI questionnaire, patient satisfaction survey, however. You could also have forms sitting on your website. So a patient could access those, or for that matter, another physician that's referring a patient to your hospital could actually click on that form on your website and then refer a patient to your hospital that way, as opposed to having to submit a faxed form, that's not even your form. It's their form that they're making you deal with, and they're faxing it to you, and hopefully they filled it out correctly. You can extend forms electronically to your other common referring physicians, have them complete your form electronically and then submit it electronically that way. So there's a number of ways that you can do this. Like I said, the patient portal, through an email, you can send a link or just have it available on your website. Hope that answers that question. Another question, which is parlays into that answer I just gave, can we have external providers access a document? So that question can come from a lot of different angles here. So yep, Terry, you're very welcome. All right, so can we have other people access these documents? Well, I was just talking about that. So the answer is yes, you can do that. Now, one of the things I want to highlight, we're actually working on this right now with one of the an HCA institution. I know we have a few people on here from HCA, so you might want to perk your ears up for this. We're working with right now a HCA organization down in San Antonio area in their forensic nursing department. So for me, I didn't know what forensic nursing was. Some of you guys might know what that is, some of you may not know what that is, but man, these people, I tell you, they're nothing short of saints. They work in largely sexual assault, with sexual assault victims and sexual assault cases. And so what's occurring today is a patient presents with obviously these very unfortunate circumstances. Unfortunate is a complete understatement, obviously. And so what happens is the forensic nurse is going to capture the consent from the patient. Can we please evaluate you? Then they'll do all their evaluations and assessments, and they're doing all this on paper. Okay, so they're doing the entire evaluation on paper. From here, they have to get these documents, and they have to get them in the hands of the detectives at the appropriate police department. So how do they do that today? They do it through either transporting them hand to hand or through the U.S. mail. Same thing also for the district's attorney's office, the DA's office. They get these documents into their hands via the U.S. mail. And look, it's all PHI, and obviously there's all sorts of implications to that, but look, on a human level, my goodness, you're talking about sexual assault victims here, and it's PHI to the nth degree, extraordinarily sensitive information. So what you have is you have a paper-based process that's being distributed through a very unsecure chain from one person to another area. So the interesting thing about this scenario is the police department and the district attorney's office, they don't share the same technologies and platforms as the hospital. So what we're doing is we're incorporating the web-based electronic form at the hospital. They're going to be doing all their consents and their evaluations on our browser-delivered electronic document. Then we are going to securely deliver it to the detectives at the appropriate police department. That delivery, of course, is instantaneous, and most importantly, it's secure. Same thing for the district attorney's office. We're going to deliver that electronically to the district attorney's office, and we're going to do so in a secure way. And what's very unique about this is that you have, again, different organizations that are working on the same process that don't share a common technological platform. We're bringing them all together and allowing them to collaborate securely on what is, of course, a very sensitive matter that is otherwise a paper-based document process. So that's just a little anecdotal story for you that I hope you guys appreciate. Okay, I don't see any other questions here coming in. If there's more questions, I'll say, hey, get them in. Otherwise, I'm going to start closing this thing up because I know we've run out of time. But guys, I really appreciate your time today. Thank you so very much for coming. Thank you again to our current customers. For those of you that came, really appreciate your business, and thank you for partnering with us. Also, for those of you that we were just talking with that are interested about e-signature technologies or paperless technologies in any capacity, you want to talk about the Universal Document Portal, reach out to your current customer rep, reach out to your sales rep, reach out to me, and I'll personally help you or point you in the right direction. We are here to serve. We really appreciate everybody that joined today. We have recorded the session. We'll make sure we distribute that again. And again, check out our website, check out our case studies, check out our blog, and we'll also make sure that you guys are notified about our upcoming e-signature webinar series for Meditech hospitals. So I don't see any other questions, so I'll wrap it up. Guys, thanks again. Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy holidays, Happy New Year, and we'll see you in 2017. Take care.